Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Barbershop Conversations. We are here. I appreciate you. I love you. And please know that everything that we do is always about building up the kingdom of God, but more importantly, also building up us as individuals who walk this walk called life. I am honored today to come before you with another phenomenal brother who's going to introduce himself to you in a moment. And we're going to again dig deep into this thing called the man's perspective of intimacy and the struggles that come with it. So I don't want to belabor us today. I want us to get right into the meat of things. This brother has got some strong convictions towards what we're doing, and I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say as we continue again to break down these barriers and these walls that have been in the way for so many years. So prepare to tear down some generational curses today. We're gonna tear some stuff up. We're gonna make the devil mad, as folks say, because we're gonna prove a whole lot of folk wrong that brothers don't talk. Well, tonight we're talking again. So I'm gonna open the floor for my brother to introduce himself in the way that works best for him, and I'm gonna get out the way. So please. Give him a little bit of who you are, Doc.
Brother Ned, thank you. I give thanks for you. I give thanks for the Royalty Mission Network for inviting me into this space for these barbershop conversations. My name is Reverend Lukata Mjumbe. I'm the pastor of the Witherspoon Street Presbyterian Church in Princeton, New Jersey. I'm a Black African man. I'm a husband. I'm a father of two daughters who are in their 20s and a son who's in his 20s. I've been divorced. I've been broke and homeless. I am a son who has today has two sisters, had three sisters. My oldest sister died from breast cancer a few years ago. I have a younger brother who is 11 years younger than me. And I went to an all Black male college. So I grew up in a household full of women with my mother and my grandmother and my sisters and my very young brother, though. But then I went to an all Black male college. And so I've had a range of experiences with both women and men, with hardship and success. And I've been a man the whole time.
The whole time.
And in some ways, well, let me not, probably not. There was a time when I became a man, probably was forced and put in a position of having to be the man of the house far before I was ready. When my mother and father divorced, and I was sat at the head of the table at 11, 12 years old, and I became the man of the house in my childhood home. And so I'm looking forward to this conversation, and I'm happy you're doing this because brothers need to have these conversations. We need to talk. We need to listen. We need to be challenged. We need to be vulnerable. We need to be strong, but we also know that we ain't strong all the time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So thank you for the invitation.
Well, I thank you for accepting the invitation. Not many folks have been extended an invitation, but not everybody is accepted because I don't think, and it's not a bad thing. Some folks just aren't ready yet to share or to put it on the table, as we say, or pull the covers back, as we like to use here. And so, let's do that today. Let's pull the covers back. Let's have some real dialogue, Doc, and really get into what it is that we should be sharing more of. I'm gonna pause for a moment because you said something that I think a lot of us as brothers and men have neglected or haven't acknowledged enough, that some of us were forced into manhood.
Oh yeah.
So some of us, it wasn't optional. It was kind of like, hey, here's adulthood before you were an adult. And that's a conversation I think we'll have as well before we get off the air tonight. But that was a very strong point. So I appreciate you dropping that nugget so folks can understand. So let's go. Our first question, which really, as we do on our show, it's just really just we're conversating. But to start the dialogue off, I'm gonna pose this question to the table, and this was a question that's been put out there. What causes men to struggle with intimacy, and why is it hard for us to talk about it? Very generic, but also very specific to us.
Well, I don't think that we always know what intimacy means. We struggle in so many ways as men and as just a community with definitions. We don't have good definitions of love. We don't have good definitions of responsibility. We don't have good definitions of intimacy. And so when you don't know what the word means, we don't have a good definition of manhood. And when you don't have good definitions and you don't have guidelines and you don't have mentors and you don't have exemplars and role models that can show you what it looks like in a positive and constructive and healthy way, then it becomes very difficult to have a conversation about it. It becomes difficult to be that. And so I think it's important as we have to do oftentimes at the beginning of any real serious examination, you have to have a definition of terms and what does that look like? And sometimes it's defined well with words, but oftentimes it's defined best with examples and situations, because that's what people truly learn from. And I know that we struggle with that because particularly within the Black community, I'll say that in many ways, intimacy has been seen as deadly or potentially deadly. Intimacy is something which exposes you to vulnerability and in ways where we cannot afford to do so. So we say we put on this muscular identity, but we have to know that there have to be times and places and circumstances and people with whom we can be vulnerable, with whom we can be open. We will not be full human beings if we don't know how to enjoy and maintain intimate relationships. And that's not simply sexual relationships,
absolutely,
but emotionally intimate, intellectually intimate, spiritually intimate relationships with other women, with our wives, with our girlfriends, with our women, with our daughters, and with other men, with our sons, with our brothers, with our friends, with our coworkers. We need to be able to have intimacy in all those different dimensions.
Right. I agree. I think that one of the things that, comes to mind when you said that, Doc, is that, that understanding of what the definition of intimacy is and wrapping your head around that concept or that thought process. I think one of our biggest struggles with it is that, like you said, that intimacy requires some action from our part. And sometimes that action is us being submissive and surrendering a part of us in order to, allow that vulnerable side to be seen. And that's a struggle for so many men. When I think about intimacy and when I try to, for Ned, define it, that's what comes to mind. Am I willing to pull the covers back, let my guard down, and feel comfortable and safe enough to let this person in?
Yeah.
We consistently, you hear folks tell us and remind us that, you got to keep small circles. You got to maintain you keep your close folks, intimate folks close to you. That's not easy to do when you don't understand what it means or how it feels to open yourself up to letting some folks in, because there's the potential of getting hurt. There's the potential of, being embarrassed or even ostracized to some degree, depending upon who you are and how you walk your walk. And so, understanding what intimacy is huge for us. And that's the first part of it, is really, like you said, getting to understand what it is. What is it? How do we define it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've raised some essential concepts in terms of understanding what intimacy is. One of the first things that you said was trust.
Yeah.
That in order to be intimate with someone in the ways in which we're talking about it, it requires a measure of trust. And it is measured because you can trust some people more than you can trust others. But you cannot be intimate with anyone unless you have some measure of trust with them. And
Correct.
so being able to get to a point with people where you can trust them, and you trust them enough, and that's the other concept that you raise. You trust them enough to allow them to see you, and to allow yourself to see them.
Yeah.
And you know, there's an African community where the greeting from the people is Sawubona, and then the response is Sawubona Sakona, and what that means is, you know, I see you. That's the Sawubona, and then the Sakona part says, and I am seen by you. And so we have to trust someone and trust ourselves enough that we can allow them to see us, and that we can allow ourselves to be to see them. And there's really trust that comes both ways. I remember, you know, I had an elder, you know, who was coming to the end of his life, and it's interesting. It shows up in the same way in a scene at the beginning of the book, Invisible Man, which has to do with someone who had flesh and blood but could not be seen, people, because they chose not to see him. But you know, there's a scene in the beginning of this book where the grandfather is about to die, and they're gathering around to hear his last words. They draw the shades and everything else. And I've actually had other elders say this to me. And then one of the things he says to them, he said, never let white folks tell you their secrets, because they'll hate you forever. You know, and so even allowing someone to reveal themselves to you, to expose themselves to you, for you to see them, requires a certain type of intimate relationship which demands trust. Because what will you do with the fact that you know that I've seen you now?
Right.
I know some things about you that everybody doesn't know, that you shared some things with me that you would never share with everyone. And that goes both ways. So there is a trust, and there is a responsibility for revealing, you know, pulling back the cover so that you can be seen, but also in allowing your eyes to fix upon someone else's exposed identity and reality and circumstance and situation. And that demands trust.
Yeah. Trust. And you added another component there, which I'll echo on as well, is responsibility. The responsibility that comes with opening up and sharing and exposing yourself to another, and receiving them in the same fashion requires a level of responsibility that builds that trust.
And when we're in so many situations raised to be men and go from boys to men, the definition of intimacy and the concept of intimacy is not a part of that.
It's not in there.
You know,
that chapter's exempt for us.
That whole idea of showing yourself, of taking responsibility for seeing somebody else, for trusting secrets. No, that's not a part of what it means to be a man, in terms of how most of us are raised to be men.
Absolutely.
And so this is why this is why we need to understand what it is, but then also to begin to include that in other definitions. A part of being a man is also being able to respect and to practice the responsibility of intimacy. And if we can't do that, we're not full men. We really aren't. And we hear it all the time. Brothers get caught up, and they don't want to be drawn into accountability. They don't want to be seen and say, I'm a grown ass man. You can't tell me that. I was like, yeah, you're exactly right.
You are.
Because an ass is a beast of burden. An ass used to be a stallion. An ass used to be a noble steed. But over time, it has been bred into something very different that does no longer has the upright stature
Right.
and the
Right.
respect that it once had. And now all you can do
It's
is
carry the heavy
carry
load.
out the burdens of other people. But
Yeah.
that's not a full man. That's a grown ass man.
You're right.
That,
You're right.
that's not what we are called to be as true men, as full men, as complete men. And we have too many half men, 3/4 men, 1/8, 1/16 men walking around who are fully grown.
Right.
You are old child. You're grown. You got years behind you. You got gray, all over you. But
you're still playing with toys.
I see a boy. Yeah.
Yeah. That's some serious stuff right there. That's some serious stuff. And what what you just shared echoes for me, Pastor, is that what's missing a lot of times for I'm guilty of this as well, because I'm still rearing my boys. I have 2 sons who I am consistently sowing into, even though my youngest will be 18 next Wednesday. But I'm still responsible for sowing into them. And one of the things that, it made very clear sense to me as we were even sharing was that, the fact that fabric is missing in our rearing, the fact that we aren't taught intimacy, the fact that we aren't taught how and what it means to be intimate in all its facets is a character flaw for us when it comes to raising our children. Yeah. Like we're missing the mark when all we teach our sons is it's not manly to cry.
Well, like we actually not only do we leave it out, we teach the opposite.
Right. Absolutely. That's where I was going with it.
Be a man.
We teach against it.
Man, don't cry.
Right.
Be a man. Don't apologize.
Don't apologize.
Be a
don't
man.
Don't show your feelings.
Don't show. Don't tell that hurt me.
Right.
That injured me. Be a man and don't ask for what you want. Just take it.
Take it.
Conquer. So we're actually taught the opposite as much as we exclude the essential dimensions of manhood in how we deal with intimacy. And all of those things are part of what it means to be able to practice and exercise intimacy. Yes, sometimes sometimes you need to cry. Sometimes you need to mourn. You need to weep. You need to be able to do that. You don't always have to be strong for everybody all the time. You do need to apologize and say, I was wrong. I did it. Yes, it was my fault. I won't do it again. You do need to say what you want when somebody and to acknowledge when somebody hurt you, not just physically,
all areas, emotionally, spiritually.
I know how to take a punch. We want to even be in denial of that, but even the emotional punch, that we may receive from a woman, from a friend, from another brother. The way that we're thought about or talked about or not thought about or not talked about, it seems weak. It seems the opposite of what we're supposed to be as men. And brother, we have to train our boys, our sons differently, because we're responsible. I know that you know this. I know that everything that my sons and daughters don't know is because I didn't make sure they had it.
Because I didn't make sure.
That's right. It doesn't mean I have everything, but I gotta recognize what's needed, and I have to draw in other partners. Again, that's a part of allowing for an intimate relationship with someone else who you allow to also deposit things in your children.
The right people.
And I'll say this, man. It's like, and I know you have all sons.
Right.
And my first 2 were twin girls. And I was horrified, terrified, because I did not think I had any idea of what to do. And when their mother and I were divorcing, and they were 8 years old, even though I knew that the best possible place for all of my children, my daughters and my sons, was going to be with me and in my custody, for about 24 hours, I was like, well, maybe I just need to split them up, and I'll take my son and let my daughters go with the mama, because I don't know. I don't know how to do that. What's going to happen when they got to get training bras? What am I going to do when they have to start their menstrual cycle?
Gotcha.
What am I
Right,
going to
right.
do with these little boys trying to mess with them? How am I going to do their hair? How am I going to buy clothes? They got a whole different shoe size and clothing size that don't even reconcile.
Don't even recognize it. Like,
Clothes
what
are.
is that?
And so I almost ran away and abandoned it, but I realized
Wow.
how important it is not only for fathers to raise their sons to be men, but there is some work and there are some contributions that we need to make in raising our girls to be young women.
Absolutely.
And I couldn't do it all. Like I said, I needed some women to help, to deposit some things that I couldn't easily deposit. And I also needed some women to deposit some things in my son, because I couldn't teach him everything.
You couldn't teach him everything. Absolutely.
It required an intimate relationship and a trust, which would allow them to see, you know what? I don't know how to do everything. I don't have mastery and command over everything. I need help. How often do we say that? I need help.
I was going to say that's a huge piece for us as men, to be able to acknowledge the fact that I need assistance, I need help, I need the support team around me is huge for us. We don't cry in the dark for help often. And sometimes it takes some of us to get to the point where we're literally at the edge of disaster before we'll even mutter the word help.
Yeah.
But to be able to do that in a way that we can be a contributing force and not just a dependent is important. And so, yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely. We have to start that conversation, that training, that rearing has to be something that we have to be at the table at. And the only way we are at the table is when we willingly say, hey, I'm willing to be intimate in this process because I don't know it all.
Yeah.
And so I got to be receptive to what other folks are willing to deposit or sow into me in order to make this thing work well.
Mm-hmm.
And on my end, like when you talked about your divorce, I remember, and it reminded me of mine and my divorce. One of the things that I struggled with, and I'll be perfectly transparent, I'm still working through, is keeping that level of intimacy in place with my ex-wife in order for us to consistently have one voice when it comes to rearing our sons and putting them in the right path. It's a struggle. And I mean, hard. It's not, I'm not pointing a finger at her or pointing a finger at me. It's one of those things that, we divorced for reasons that are our reasons, but because of our own emotional baggage, that struggle happened. And, I own my part of it. I was like, man, I really dropped the ball when it came to keeping the proper and healthy relationship with my son's mother so that they didn't have to deal with stuff that they shouldn't have had to deal with. And it created a level of a handicap for them in a lot of areas emotionally and spiritually, because they had to now process stuff without mom and dad's input, or feeling comfortable coming to mom and dad because there was a level of trust that might have been broken because I didn't do my due diligence and working on the intimacy with their mom. It's huge for us to be able to do that. It hurts generationally when we don't.
Yeah, I mean, they're in lots of states, when you're preparing for divorce and you're going through that process, they require you to take these trans parenting courses. And people kind of jump in them because they're required by the court and getting out as quickly as they can. They don't remember anything. They're on their phone half the time, during the class. But truly, it's an ongoing learning process of figuring out how to deal with the dynamics of exes. I mean, and babies' mamas and how do we navigate all the different complexities that show up, and it can ruin our relationships with our children, but it can also ruin our relationships with ourselves because we become so embittered, or we avoid, like I know so many brothers who don't have relationships with their children that would actually be the best thing that could happen to them.
Yeah,
because
they
they
would
can't
have so
get
much
along with
growth.
their mama. They can't get they can't get along with them. They can't communicate. They can't. And again, like I said, I'm trying to be more like you when I grow up, because I never reached the level of mastery of being able to manage the relationship in such a way where there was any sort of maintenance of intimacy. You know,
Right.
I just worked on the maintenance of peace, the maintenance of
Right.
and peace defined the way we're not supposed to define it, as the absence of conflict.
Right. Yeah.
Not peace like
It was peace in the midst of conflict.
The word like right relationship. No, not that kind of peace. It was, let me find a peace where I don't raise my voice,
Right.
where my blood pressure doesn't go up.
Go up.
Where I don't have to just walk out the room and say, all right, it's over. You know,
Leave me alone. Get away from me.
That's the piece that I have had to deal with. So even learning how to do that. And again, so let me ask you, how'd you learn how to do that? Like, who taught
I'm learning
you to do that? Or you got a teacher? Is there a master that appeared when you need it? I mean,
listen, so please don't mistake what I said to mean that there was mastery involved. Right. I am like you. I struggled through that whole process of understanding, how to deal with having peace without the conflict. Because there was always peace in the midst of conflict. There was always the conflict, and then the explosion, and then I was in this like recoil mode of trying to figure out, okay, you know what? I got to figure this out, because this relationship, the way that it's functioning, is going to kill me. Right. I'm going to be on blood pressure medicine the rest of my life. I'm going to be dealing with, like, it was just, and then for me, it just became a moment of, I can't have that if I don't create it in here first.
Yeah.
And so it became a matter of, Ned, you have to be healthy. You're not going to be good for anybody if you're laying in a hospital bed, striving to try to keep your life. And so it just became a matter of just looking out for self-preservation at one point. Mm-hmm. And then once that became the mantra for me, it became a little easier to navigate and manage what was going on with my sons and their mom. Yeah. Some things weren't worth being confrontational for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like, because I realized in my own self, like, because I was dealing with my own emotional baggage, sometimes I was looking for the confrontation, because I knew that, like, listen, I can get some stuff off my chest. To what cause and to what end? And so it became important for me to just say, you know what? As old folks say, peace, be still. It's like, you know what? Let's just figure this out. If there's conflict that comes out of it, it ain't going to be motivated by me, but we'll work through it. And the goal for me was always, how are my sons going to perceive this? Yeah. How are my sons going to perceive this? Because what I learned to do was I did not want my sons to grow up with a completely unhealthy relationship for either of us, for their mom or for me. Mm-hmm. And so that was the carrot. That's what I hung out for in my head. How do I keep this healthy? How do I keep my sons? Because this isn't going to be just the here and now. I always look at it as though what I do today will impact my grandchildren. Right? Because if I create an unhealthy relationship with my sons, that means that my grandchildren are going to have an unhealthy relationship with me. Mm-hmm. And ultimately their children. And so I don't want to have there to ever be a disconnect between me and the generations that follow me. Yeah. Shouldn't be. And so, for me, that's what helped me kind of ground myself to move through and finding that even plane.
Yeah. Well, that is a journey. And
man,
the thing that I've come to realize, Ned, is that even when we get ourselves together and we get ourselves right, it doesn't mean the situation is fixed.
No.
Because real talk, the people who we can be dealing with sometimes are fools. The people who we are dealing with sometimes are not in order. And we still have to deal with them.
And you still got to deal with folks.
And we can't always take responsibility. And normally we can't. be responsible for helping or certainly not fixing the other person and what they're going to do. All we can do is to deal with us and to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do and we're not doing what we're not supposed to do. I'm thinking about my elders back in Alabama. I know you're from Mississippi, I'm from Alabama.
Yes, sir.
And I had an elder that said to me, he said, look, he said, when they lie about you, just make sure it ain't true. And that's all you can do.
That's all you can do.
You can't keep them from lying about you.
No.
You can't keep them from making up things and saying you did this or you didn't do that or whatever. All you can do, though, is make sure it's not true. You may not even be able to defend yourself and to keep other people from believing the lie, but you can make sure it's not true. Yeah. And that's something that I've had to hold on to as a man, because I've had people lie about me, to misrepresent me, to say all things in my name, and the best that I could do, I said, well, you know what? Me and God know that's not true.
Amen.
And that may be all that I can do. And eventually, I believe that truth will win out. Dr. King said the arc of the universe is long and it bends towards justice, and that eventually, in the sweet by and by, everybody gets held responsible and accountable for what they do and what they do
and what they don't do.
And so that's what I've had to rest on in terms of, when they lie about me, I just make sure it ain't true.
And make sure it ain't true.
A liar gonna lie. That's what a liar does.
Right. Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? So let me springboard that dialogue into this next segment, this next question. And we've talked about defining what intimacy is and how it is important to make sure that we should have a clear definition of the word and the term and its responsibility that's attached to it. When we don't follow that protocol, when we aren't willing to find out what the definition of intimacy is, or we aren't in position to find it out, when we don't take the energy, time, and effort to build the relationships or be consistent in our character, how does that impact us as men in our homes, in our churches, in our places of worship, whether it be at our workplace, in our community, with our children, and with our spouses? What's the damage from your perspective? What's the damage that can be done?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's damage in a lot of ways, but I would think that maybe the first, in economics, there's this concept called opportunity cost, and it's what you miss out on. Mm-hmm. It's the cost of what you never see that you could have seen. Not necessarily something that was taken away from you, like you had $100 in your pocket, and because you made a bad investment decision, you lost 50 and now you only got 50. The opportunity cost is you had $100 in your pocket, and if you would have invested 25, you would have got a return on your investment of about 200. You would have doubled your money. And so I think that when we are unable to understand, to practice, to give and to receive intimacy, to maintain intimate relationships, there's a huge opportunity cost. We miss the ways that we can be connected and engaged, and the ways that we can learn from as well as teach our children. Mm-hmm. So there's lots of things that we missed as young people that we can learn later as we watch our children. Like when I watch my son and I watch my daughters, I see the mistakes that I made, some that I didn't even know that I had made.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you about to do that? That's what I did. Oh man, I'm still doing that. And so if we don't have an intimate relationship where they can come to us and talk with us and share with us, because we have such this muscular parenthood and fatherhood and manhood where they don't feel as if they can come and share and reveal and not be condemned or judged or even hurt, then we miss things that we can learn and ways that we can grow spiritually and emotionally with our children. It's the same thing with women, bro. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
we have this thing. And I was watching Steve Harvey talking about how he can't be friends with no women. And I'm like, brother,
I heard that segment.
You got a huge opportunity cost there. You don't know how much you've missed because you don't have the capacity to be in a friendship, in a relationship with a woman, because you're always thinking about if you can hit it, or you're always thinking about whether or not, how long it's going to take,
right?
Or the sexual dynamic. You can't navigate through that. But there's incredible opportunity costs. Not being able to be in a friendship with anybody else other than our mama and our biological sisters. That's a problem. And
that is a problem.
And lessons things that we can be taught, things that we can be shown, ways that we can be helped, ways that we can be encouraged, ways that we can be protected. I mean, there's so many things that I have that come as a result of my non-sexual relationships that I have with women who are my sisters, who are my friends, who are my comrades, who are my colleagues. And when we're unable to be that, and then with men, the same thing. When we are unable to be intimate with men, we never reach, the concept of there's some sports that the way you excel is being great all by yourself. Like if you're a boxer, you need to be able to handle it for yourself. I mean, I was a wrestler when I was in high school. The hardest sport that I ever did, because it was me and another opponent going head to head for a certain
mano a mano.
But if when you see a person that never played team sports, when they grew up, they never had to rely on someone else. They never had to trust someone else to put up a pick or to throw a block or to protect or to move. If you've never had to do that for someone else to hit a sacrifice fly, if we don't have the ability to trust and see what other men need and to show other men what we need, we can't function in the team sort of way that we should be functioning as brothers and men in this society, and Black men in particular. If we can't work it out, if we can't figure out how we can trust one another and see one another and support one another and lift one another up and have your back, your front, and your side, then we are not going to make it. We will not, the history is made by groups of people. You put Dr. Martin Luther King on the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, and he's gone. That's his last day. It is only by being in partnership and right relationship with groups of people. And if I can't be intimate with you, then you cannot fully trust me, and I cannot fully trust you. And we're limited, and our opportunity costs are immense.
I'm reminded of a personal moment, even for myself, Doc, when I was in my place of employment and I was wrongly accused of something. A young woman accused me of touching her inappropriately. For whatever reason, I went in my normal mode of prayer and was like, God, I can't fight this one. This is all you. And I didn't say anything. I didn't defend myself. I didn't speak out against the person. I didn't say a word. The folks who worked around me, women and men who I've had relationships with, came to my defense and went to folks and was like, not him.
Yep.
That's not him. He would never do that. I didn't have to say a word. And that speaks to the intimate relationship that I had created with a multitude of men and young women who respected me and I respected them, who understood that we had a symbiotic relationship of need, that I would be there for them and they knew that vice versa. That's what makes us grow. And that's what helps us sustain ourselves in this journey that we're on. Like you said, there's no way that one individual is going to make a movement happen.
Right.
That one individual connecting to others creates the movement. And so if we think that we're doing it by ourselves, it just doesn't happen. That's a falsehood. We have to create these relationships, and those relationships have to be created with a level of intimacy and trust and responsibility that helps us grow, learn, and develop together.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the elements of intimacy, it's we can talk about opportunity costs, but there are also some real challenges with that too, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're intimate with somebody, they have the ability to check you. They have the ability to correct you. They have the ability to point out some things in you. Like, you ain't never really seen what the back of your head looks like. You
but you in the right relationship, somebody will tell you.
You got a mirror, you can see a representation and a reflection of what your backside looks like. Right. But truly, the only person who's really going to be able to see your whole backside from top to bottom is going to be someone, and I'm not just talking about physically, but someone who has an intimate relationship with you. And then can you allow that person to tell you something?
Right.
To expose something to you about you.
And you receive it well.
Seen,
right.
And be able to be like, wow, well, I trust you. And I know you, and I know you know me. So I'm gonna let you tell me.
Right. You can get that.
And I'm gonna see that. And I had a conversation with a brother yesterday, man. And I was sharing some personal things with him, some things that I'm going through. And he made, I'm not intimate with this whole audience on Royal Ministry, so I'm not sharing all of it.
I got you. Only what you want.
He gave me an observation about some of my Facebook posts. And I was like, and he said some things that I had never heard, and honestly, some things that I hadn't thought about. But because of who it was who was telling it to me, because we had an intimate relationship where I could trust him to see me, then I had to say, wow, you know what, man, I hope you're the only one that really sees it that way. Because that's not what I want to do.
That wasn't what you were trying to put out there.
That's what I'm trying to communicate with these Facebook posts. And but he was able to say it to me in such a way that made me say, you know what? Okay, so I'm checked on that. I need to go and I need to look at that and hear that. And that's not always easy. It's not always easy to be able to allow someone to say, bro, I gotta pull your coattails here. I'm gonna whisper it to you because I don't want everybody else to hear it. But you out of pocket right now. You're not where you need to be. You're not doing what you need to do. And I've had to do that with brothers, whether it be in relationship to their children, whether it be in relationship to their significant other, whether it be in relationship to just how they're representing themselves in certain spaces, to say, look, you know that I love you, and that's something else that we don't know how to say. Tell another black. I mean, I did this almost a thought experiment. It wasn't intentional. I was leading a prayer group, and we were talking about love and everything else. And I said, this week, what I want you to do is I want you to go to as many people as you can, who you can say it authentically to, and just say, I love you. Just go and tell them I love you.
Right.
And when we go and do that, I love you.
Listen, it changes things.
You all right? Are you sick? Are you dying?
Right.
Are you gay? Are you attracted to me? And this is women or men. You say I love you to a man, they're gonna be like, yeah, bro, I love you.
Love you too. What's up with that?
It's LUV. I got number love for you. Yeah, I got love for you. We got to change it up.
Yeah, we got to switch that up so it don't sound as.
Yeah, we can't say it precisely in that way. Yep. And we have to be able to say that and show that. And live into that love, a love that responds, a love that's committed, a love that gives, a love that keeps promises.
That's important for us, man. I tell you, when I think about, and I shared this once before on this platform. So I grew up, man. My dad was just a straight country bumpkin. He was just a sharecropper, picking cotton and tobacco out of Mississippi until he went in the military. So nothing about his upbringing taught him how to say, I love you.
Yeah. And
so I grew up with a man in my house who never said it to me. Knew he did later in life, because he did it through his actions by providing, but never verbalized the words. And so for me, that was something that was missing when I was growing up. And I didn't understand it until I became a dad myself with my first son. And I thought, he's never going to not have that moment. He's never going to be able to tell a story that I didn't say. So I've said to my sons, they hear it from me daily that I love them.
Yeah.
I listen, in the beginning, it was cute for them in the beginning. Now I think for my younger one, he look at me like, because he'll be at the gym coming out of basketball practice, and I'll be like, yo, man, what's up, Dad? I love you. And he'll look around at his boys like, love you too, Dad. But you're going to hear it. Because it's a powerful word when it's backed with the actions of provision, when it's backed with the actions of of protecting and providing and sacrifice. That word love carries more merit.
Yeah,
and it's huge for us.
And I'm thinking, today I just got a notice. I saw it online earlier that our beloved sister Bell Hooks passed today. And she was an amazing Black feminist scholar, and I actually used quite a bit of her work this past Sunday when I preached. And one of the books she wrote was called All About Love. And she talked about the importance of the definition of love and how oftentimes, and I was listening to you as you talked about your father and how we define love. We do oftentimes imagine that love is simply care. That love is simply and I played a clip during my sermon on Sunday from Fences that Denzel Washington played. I know Denzel and Viola Davis, and there's this scene where he has with his son, and his son says,
scene.
Did you ever like me? And then Denzel says, is there any law that says that I have to like you? Don't you eat my food? Don't you sleep in my house? Don't I take care of you? And then he says, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. And that whole scene is powerful, but also because the son, Corey, is not really asking, do you like me? He's asking, do you love me?
Do you love me?
And but as men, we don't have the training and the socialization to allow those words to flow off of our lips. And then Denzel immediately retreats to not having to deal with love. He deals with his care. He said, it's my job to take care of you. That's why I do it, because it's my job to do it. But truthfully, bro, that love is more than just taking care of us. And the reality is, some of us have grown up in our life. And I'll say in many ways, I feel like I have with my father. I don't feel like I had a father who loved me. I feel like I had a father who, on some measure, at least for a certain period of my life, took care of me.
Right.
Care and finances is not a substitute for love.
That's
love involves so much more. Love involves time. Love involves listening. Love involves giving in ways that when you give, you actually get joy from the giving. You don't give it resentfully. You are a cheerful giver as you give to somebody who you love. When you respond to someone because you pay attention, like what's happening with my son, what's happening with my daughters. Let me sometimes we used to crack on people. You so broke you can't even pay attention.
Pay attention.
But we have to pay that cost. We have to pay it, and sometimes it's more expensive than the rent that we're paying, than the food that we're buying. And so love is extending yourself for someone else or for yourself, because it's self-love, but for their spiritual growth and well-being and becoming. Love is as love does. This is Bell Hooks quoting from this psychiatrist. And I just want to pray for all of the people who love Bell Hooks like me, because it's a great loss for us. And I've just begun to fully appreciate the depth of what she was bringing. Because honestly, I'll say that oftentimes when I hear black and feminists put together, I'd be like, oh, okay.
Mm.
Well, I know they're gonna give me a hard time. They're gonna be mad and angry at me, and I'm not feminist. I'm womanist, and I had to make adjustments and all of that. And and again, I'm not saying that everybody who calls themselves feminist or black feminist or whatever else is perfect, but I know that there's something for me to learn from them. There's something that I can receive. I said you heard this in Mississippi too. They said sometimes you gotta eat the fish and spit out the bones.
Yes, sir.
And
yes, sir.
and all of it's not going to be good, but there can be something that's good for you.
Yep.
And
you just take your time.
That's the challenge that we have. Yep.
Just take your time. Be patient with it.
Get along with it. So I mean, so yeah, I think that us really having conversations with other brothers, like, so what does it mean to love? Love is not because you pay you're current on your child support.
That's right.
You're going to jail if you don't pay your child support. You're just smart and able to protect yourself
to keep yourself out of jail.
I mean, that's not an expression of love.
Nope.
Love is so much more and so much before that, and that's something that we got to learn.
Yeah, and it is learnable. I mean, it's one of the things that I always try to articulate and help folks understand is that, these so-called character flaws or areas of deficiency, we can correct, we can learn from them. We can still bridge that gap so that we aren't as far apart from each other as it appears, or sometimes it really is. So yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
You are right. It is learnable when we are teachable.
When we are teachable.
And sometimes that's a hard thing. I'm gonna have another man teach me how to be a man.
Listen,
he's younger than me. How he
gonna tell me something?
I done forgot more things that you ever learn, boy. I mean, we have to be teachable, even when we're younger, when we're hard headed. When we're in our teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. We still have to remain teachable, lifelong learners. It is learnable. We can learn intimacy. We can learn love. We can learn trust. We can learn to see.
It's all there.
But we have to allow ourselves to lean into places and spaces of discomfort, to be vulnerable, to be open, and it's not a big jump sometimes. It may be to reach a distant goal. It takes many small steps,
and sometimes it's better to take the small steps because the journeys are more learned that way. I'm reminded of a quote that says, the lessons begin when the student arrives, not when the teacher arrives. That's when it starts. So when you decide that you're going to be the student, that's when you start picking it up. That's when you start learning. It's difficult to walk in the room and think you know more than the teacher.
Yeah,
you're never going to get it.
And the right teacher knows that they're a student too.
Amen.
That there is, the root words of education, edu and kare, it is to draw out that there is more knowledge, wisdom, and understanding in the people who you claim that you are teaching than what it is that you are in possession of. And your job as a teacher, as an educator in education, is to draw that out. It's all for all of us to benefit from. So there's a banquet, there's a smorgasbord, there's a buffet of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that we draw out and that we all contribute, and we all walk out of that room.
It's available to us all.
Yes.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Listen, Doc, we could probably take this conversation another hour and a half if we wanted to easily.
I'm tired. It's late. It's not like when I was in my 20s. I said, you had this song Ice Cube, "We Be Clubbing," but at 50, I'd be sleepy.
Bring it down. That's it.
I can't do like I used to do. I hit it hard during the day. And
when the sun go down, it's time to take it down.
In the night. Yes.
That's it. I'll tell folks, listen, the bounce back just ain't what it used to be for us, man. When you get to a certain level, you're like,
we gotta acknowledge that too, right?
You gotta be smart.
You gotta say that. The number one cause of injury of men over 40 is, I can still play with them young boys.
Yeah.
And you might still be able to jump up for that rebound, but you're not coming down on the same knees that you had when you was 20.
No,
Oh, I
sir.
can still get up there, but can you still come down?
Right. Can you and then move afterwards?
Yeah, and you messed up for a week. You're thrown off
Listen,
your back, and then you can't exercise, and your shoulder, you
everything hurts.
rotate a cuff, and so all of those things are important for us to acknowledge as older men. Who
Yeah.
also I still got it. Well, some of it you left.
Yeah,
You
you left
know,
some of it.
and
Listen, some of
that's
it you've
okay.
given away.
That's okay. That's okay. This is a
Yep.
different stage of the journey.
Yep.
This,
Absolutely.
this is a different way that we walk in now.
Absolutely. So listen, Pastor, I want you to do me a favor. Again, I appreciate this conversation, and this is just one of many dialogues that I believe we're going to have. Um,
Amen.
leave the listeners with one thought that you believe would be beneficial from all we've shared tonight. And we've kind of bounced around a lot tonight and put a lot of stuff out there. And I hope folks are paying attention because there were a lot of good pieces that we put on the table. But as we start talking about this healing journey into intimacy, what's something you'd like to leave the folks with tonight?
We read a passage of scripture this morning in our prayer call. We have something called Lectio Divina, divine reading, where we read a passage of scripture and then we go back and ask questions about it. We read it 4 different times, and we read from John 13. And then that scripture this morning, the sister Sharon Campbell, who led us through that this morning, it begins with Jesus saying, I give you this commandment, that you are to love one another deeply and fully. And one of the words that jumped out for me when I heard that was not only the deeply and fully, which I also want to deal with, but was the fact that it's a commandment. And if you don't keep a commandment, you are sinning, and the penalty of sin is death. And so the one thought that I would like to leave is that, this isn't the call to intimacy for men shouldn't be taken as a suggestion or a recommendation or a might could possibility if we want to just, make things a little better. It's actually required.
Yes, sir.
Like, this is something that we must do. It's essential. It is a command, because when we love someone deeply and fully, it is impossible to love someone deeply and fully without intimacy.
That's right.
And we are to love people in all different dimensions of our life. We are to love family members. We are to love children. We are to love spouses and mates. We are even called to love enemies. And there is a measure of intimacy that is required to be in right relationship with all different kinds of people. Yes. So we have to start making this as a part of our manhood curriculum. That it's a required course. It's not an elective. Intimacy is something which is a functional prerequisite for us to be the men that we are called by God to be, and to be the men that our communities are calling us to be. We don't need no more grown ass men.
There you go.
We don't need any more 3/4 half a men. We need brothers who can be friends with women, who can be comrades and co-workers and partners.
Yes,
and husbands and I don't do boyfriends. I'm not a boy no more.
Amen. That's right.
And we need to be able to say, be a man, and be a man doesn't mean don't be vulnerable.
That's right.
Don't ever show weakness. Don't cry. We have to. And I know I'm giving you more than one thought, but it's all about.
That's all good.
It's a required. It's a required discipline that we have to start encouraging and expecting and demanding. And I'll say it to the women as well, because you're co-conspirators in the problem.
Yes, sir.
In some ways, you're the majority of the problem, because women have to also demand, encourage, cultivate, and to be in receipt of that same intimacy. And they have to encourage that within their men.
Yes, sir.
Allow your man to be intimate without calling him a punk. Allow your man to be intimate about
Uh-oh.
questioning his manhood.
Uh-oh.
Allow your man
Listen,
to be intimate.
hold up, Doc. Hold up, Doc. That's the next segment now. You about to start some stuff.
Okay. All
And
right.
I want us to be able to get into that because that is so important for not only for men to know, but for some of our sisters to understand their role and why we are who we are and how we are.
Yeah.
So that's a segment we're going to get into coming up soon. I would be remiss because I try to keep us on task as best as possible without us going completely out of pocket here tonight. I'm just overjoyed at this kind of conversation, man. This is the stuff that feeds my spirit, and I pray I pour out for others to feed off of. Doc, I'm so excited that you were willing to come on board with us today, man, and just pull the covers back and share from your pot of knowledge and what has been given to you to share. I thank you, man, for giving what you were told to give, no more, no less,
Well, brother,
and sharing in the way.
Brother Ned, thank you. I am so appreciative of you and your invitation and your leadership and the examples that you are setting as a man, as a father, as one who is still under construction, still growing, still learning. I am so thankful and so impressed with Royalty Missions Network and Royalty Ministries and our sister, Minister Monica Jackson, the amazing woman that she is, and my relationship with her has been so much based on me seeing my mother in her, and as she raises her children, and dealing with some of the same things that my mother had to deal with as a single mother with 5 children. There's so much that I am appreciative of you and this network, and happy to be a part of it. I would just invite anyone who is interested. You know, of course, I got to do this because I got to extend the opportunity for salvation and hope and peace and love and joy. But so you can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, Witherspoon Street Presbyterian Church, based in Princeton, New Jersey. We have services at 10 o'clock that are always live streamed on Facebook and YouTube. So you can be anywhere in the world. Some of our most consistent watchers are from Ghana and Nigeria. So wherever you are, you can check in at whatever time of day that is for you, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, U.S. Eastern Standard Time. We also do a morning prayer call every morning, Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. And so we invite you to come in and join that. You can join it on Zoom. Reach out. We'll send you the link, Facebook, YouTube. And we have Bible study every Wednesday at 12:30. And again, and on all of those platforms, and you are welcome and you're invited, because this is a long-term endeavor.
Yes, sir.
You can't just have one conversation and one step. You know, the commitment that we have is long-term. We say that baby Jesus didn't save us. Baby Jesus came and it was important, but baby Jesus lived a whole life all the way into adulthood, teaching and showing and sacrificing and being present with us all the way up to the death. And so we invite you to continue. If something has been sparked in you today, if a seed has been planted, because the best and the greatest is yet to come, as my mother always says to me, and that is something that I hope that we can be doing together.
Awesome. Absolutely. Absolutely. As you stated, this is not a one and done. This is a continuum, and we will continue to do what we consider to be the good work so that we can help folks start the healing process and continue to be the men and women that God created them to be, for themselves, for their families, for their communities, and ultimately for everyone. I thank everybody for joining us today. It has been a phenomenal conversation here in the barbershop. I hope that you've been enriched, inspired, and motivated to do some things differently than you did yesterday. We are here for you. As we always say to everyone, you know, you are never in this journey alone. We are always here for you and with you in this walk. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us here at Royalty Ministry Networks or Royalty Mission Network. And we will do our due diligence to make sure that we reach back out, connect to you, whether it be just to advise, to encourage, to pray, or to just be here for you as a sounding board. Whatever we can do, we are engaging you in the best way we know how to get you from point A to point B. I would be remiss if I didn't say to you before we get off the air that we are at the end of the year. We are in December, halfway through this year, this month. And so know that next week is Christmas. We will still be on the air next Wednesday at 5 p.m. So please make sure you are prepared to hear a solid message from us. Not quite sure where we're going to go with it for our holiday season, but we're going to do something special for y'all. We're in the planning process, so we're going to put something together nice for you guys for next Wednesday. So be prepared for that. And then also know that come the new year, we have a list of things that are going on. Anticipate some of our new classes that'll be starting coming up in the new year. The DIY Man Project, which will be starting in the new year. And so anticipate us doing some great stuff. We are going to consistently listen to you, so we consistently know how God wants us to do what it is that he requires. So again, I thank you for joining us tonight. I thank my brother for being with me. It has been an honor and a privilege to just share the platform with you tonight. And to all those who are out there who are listening, know that you are loved because I love you. Take care of yourselves and be blessed.